Hi, and welcome back to the series of talks on conscious personality management. This is part 4 of 6. And in the previous 3 parts, we have spoken about the structure of personality overall, and then we've spoken about 2 of the 4 components of personality that we are in the process of discussing. In this particular talk, we're going to be speaking about a rather challenging area, a challenging component of our personality, which is our emotional self. In certain areas of knowledge, the emotional self is also referred to as the astral body. And it's a challenging part of our personality to manage, largely because in the area of personality building or personality development, there is a lot of material that is spoken of in terms of catering to and indulging in the emotional self. And don't get me wrong, it's important to take care of this and all other aspects of the personality. Each of them are very valuable tools that allow us to get through life and, more importantly, allow us to evolve spiritually and in every other way. And therefore, it is important to cater to each of these bodies, each of these parts of our personality. Having said that, there is a difference between taking care of, responding to, and on the other end of the spectrum, absolutely indulging in and getting carried away by each of these components. And that's a particular challenge with reference to the emotional self, because emotions can be overwhelming and sometimes they can completely drive us and take over our lives. And hence, it's important that we learn to firstly recognize it and then manage this aspect of the personality. Left to itself, what is the default mode of our emotional bodies, the emotional parts of ourselves? Our emotional bodies live for feeling. They live for a sense of thrill. They live for stimulation. As a result, the more stimulated they get, the more emotional inputs they have, either positive or negative, around within you as well as around you. The emotional body then tries to seek even more thrill, even more sensation, even more feeling. And as a result, our emotional cells are constantly looking for stimulation. More often than not, of course, we would look for positive stimulation. We would look to feel good. We crave for happiness. And sometimes we may also end up craving for pain, something that's not pleasurable, because there is a payoff, right? There is some kind of a very subversive sense of pleasure that sometimes painful emotions can bring. Sometimes they bring us attention, sometimes they bring us care from outside of us, and therefore we are willing to ask for pain. We are willing to ask for something that could potentially be emotionally and even physically unhealthy. But the point is, left to itself, the emotional body is always seeking to feel. Feeling is not a bad thing, right? Our brains, part of our brain is also wired to feel. We have the limbic brain, which exists for the purpose of being able to feel and to differentiate between pleasure and pain. It's part of our biology, and therefore there is nothing wrong with its existence. What can become problematic and come in the way of growth is if we are driven by feeling and we start living for feeling a certain way. That's when it becomes problematic, and that's when our emotions start managing us. Emotions start driving us instead of we being in charge. And hence, it's important to notice what our default mode is. And it's possible that our default changes over a period of time. the more we let ourselves cater to our need for stimulation, the more stimulation the emotional self wants, because it does not get satisfied with what used to be the earlier default mode. For example, if you, let's say earlier in life, could not bear to watch violent movies or horror movies, for example, but at some point you started watching them, somebody encouraged you to go to a certain movie and you experienced a sense of thrill, you experienced a sense of adventure, which perhaps let you feel good in some way. The more you start connecting with that sense of feeling good, feeling thrilled, or feeling excited, the more you seek to replicate that same experience. And therefore, what started off as perhaps one horror movie or one violent film gets extended into a series of them till you become addicted to, at times, to a certain mode of excitement. And that addiction is what we are looking to watch out for. It's very easy to get addicted to emotions and to not notice it, because sometimes these addictions really feel good. And therefore, we need to figure out, how do we consciously manage our emotional self? It is important to give our emotional body, this aspect of us, this highly resourceful aspect of us, it's important to give it a sense of direction, a sense of who and what it is responsible for, what is its duty, who is it serving. If I'm only serving my need for feeling a certain way, for example, if I'm only constantly serving my need for happiness, then it's very likely that I'm not being responsible, because in the process of trying to be happy, I may shirk my duties in other areas of life. I may shirk my responsibility towards others, and our collective lives are as important as our individual lives are. And therefore, it's important to give it a sense of responsibility, come at it from the rational self, and let our emotional self know what is essential and who is essential. And therefore, make sure that you are directed to work towards not only preservation and happiness of oneself, but also for the larger collective world that we are a part of. Get into a habit, a regular process of looking at what is the impact of the various emotions that you feel. What is the impact of the emotions that you feel on yourself? Also, what is the impact of the emotions that you feel and you project onto others around you? This analysis of impact can let you be more conscious in terms of figuring out what emotions do you want to encourage in yourself, and what is it that you do not wish to encourage. And very importantly, cultivate and nurture a sense of connection with the larger world. This connection is not necessarily only with other human beings. It could also be connection with life in every form. Connection with plants, connection with animals, connection with the ecology as a whole will help us manage our emotions better, because the more connected we are, and remember, I'm using the word connected and not attached. We're not talking about being clingy. We're not talking about being so attached to something or someone that by itself creates an emotional loop and an addiction. But we're simply talking of a sense of connection, to notice that life brings us together. Everything in life is interwoven. To notice that brings in a sense of compassion. And compassion is a higher degree sentiment beyond lower emotions which only cater to the individual self. And so nurture that sense of connection to the world beyond you. Those are some ways in which you can start to notice and also manage your emotional body consciously. And of course, as always, stay in a consistent process of reflection. In this case, notice, what does your emotional self seek? Do you crave for certain emotions more than others? If so, how would you like to regulate it? Also, start noticing the kind of situations where you allow yourself to be led by emotions instead of you coming in to manage emotions. There are moments where your emotions might drive you, and that's okay. That's part of our growth and our learning in the process of life. Having said that, if we let that be the default mode, then we are not quite in the driver's seat. And conscious management of our personality is all about being on the driver's seat in our own lives. And therefore, notice what you feel, what you like to feel, and also to notice what's beyond the feeling. What more are you capable of? Till the next time, take care.
Help Talks are daily health-related talks held at Health Education Library for People, Mumbai, India. For more information visit www.healthlibrary.com. Subscribe to Help Talks channel. Be better informed about your health.